Alright, thought I'd make this video in response to another YouTube member, TSCGG13, on a buckshot loading video. We'd been commenting back and forth on our different recipes that we use, so I thought I'd go ahead and show what I use here. Reloading on a Mech Mark V. I've had this loader about 12 years. Just using the powder bottle in right now. You don't need the shot. I just leave the shot bottle out completely when I'm doing these. We'll start out here. I'm using, when I do my buckshot, and I also do slugs, I use a Remington High Brass Express hull. I was able to pick up about 500 of these really cheap last summer, but they load the same as the STS or gun club hulls. You gotta be careful with some of the Remington hulls, the high brass hulls. Like a lot of the actual buckshot hulls, they're a black base wad in there, and those actually load different. You'll see recipes for the Remington SP hulls, stuff like that. You gotta look into those to make sure you're using the right hulls, but these have the same one-piece base wad as the STS. It's molded right into the casing. So we'll start out here. These do resize a little bit tougher just with the high brass, but it does a nice job on the resize. And also, go ahead and switch my crimp starter. These are 6-point crimp, so go ahead and prime it. And for this recipe, I use a 28 bushing in the Mechs. I'm using Winchester Superfield powder. It's a really slow burning, nice slow burning powder. It's great for high base Magnum stuff like 2 3/4 inch Magnums. If you wanna, you can do those too with this powder for pheasant hunting, stuff like that, all the way up to, you can even do some steel shot with it. There's older recipes for this powder for steel shot. It also works good for 1 1/8 ounce target or field loads if you want to load some, 13 to 1350 feet per second field loads. Or I've had good luck actually loading down to around 1200 feet per second with this powder, and it burns just fine. I would definitely recommend a nice slow burning powder, or also a ball powder. This powder drops extremely consistent from these bushings. A lot of the and I had commented on in response to this video on what powder he was using. A lot of Alliant powders, they don't drop consistently because they're flake powders. These bushings, most of the time, from what I've experienced with Alliant powder, is the charges are all over the place. You'll get, sometimes a variance of, almost 1 grain. And also, they're usually undercharged. These bushings, if you're looking for, let's say 20 grains, you'll actually be throwing like, 18.7 or 19 grains with either green dot or Red Dot, some of their flake powders I've used. And again, I wouldn't be using a fast. I wouldn't recommend a fast burning powder for buckshot. You need a slow burning powder. So we'll go ahead and drop the powder here. Go ahead and check it there. It's good to go. So I have baffles on my loader, if you can see that here. So that helps a lot with metering the powder down. Again, the baffle's not going to do that great with flake powder. It's honestly, you probably get less consistency with the baffles. They're really designed for fine grain powder. But what I do, you can use, depending on what kind of powder you're using, the wads you're going to use. Me, I use either a WAA12 or a WT12 wad. See, this is a WT12. It's in all loading data. You can switch between a WAA12. They're interchangeable. What I do, I've seen some recipes call with the pedals on the wad, but I've never had much luck being able to get a good stack in the casing with the pedals on. And if you look at any factory buckshot, there's not pedals on the wad. I load them to the recipe that I've found, and from what using factory, if you look at factory buckshot, that's what they don't have pedals. They do have a cushioning section, usually like in the Remington buckshot they use a power piston wad. They do have a cushioning section, and also they have buffer, which I also use here, which we'll get to. Ballistics Products, mix number 47 they call it. It's what they recommend for large shot and buckshot. Basically all it is ground up plastic, and they have a 2.5 cc dipper, and that's what they recommend for a standard 12 gauge load. It's a perfect amount for the 12 gauge. So we'll go ahead and put the wad in here. You can also buy, I have a bunch of these, the Ballistics Products hard cards. They're called the Mini Nitro hard cards. They're nice if you need to adjust your stack height. Like I use them in my slugs to bring the height up a little bit. But for this, I just go ahead and put the wad in. Show you that with the pedals cut off. Go ahead and put it in. Slide that back across. It's not going to drop any shocks. So then I got my wad in there, and if you watch this, you don't have to push the shot down in there if you remove the pedals. With double out buck, you can literally just drop them in, and they fall right into place perfectly in stacks of 3, just like they're supposed to be there. You can see that. That's it right there. I mean, they're perfect height. Go ahead and take a nice level scoop of buffer, put it in, and then just tap. I like to tap it down in there just so the shot, you just barely see the buckshot sticking through it. Go ahead and start crimp. Final crimp. You can see that's about as perfect of a crimp. These 6-point express hulls, they crimp really nice and tight. No, the buffer's not going to leak out. Makes a really nice buckshot load. These aren't a max load or anything. They're with the 28 bushing. I can't remember the exact grains that it drops. But you can go up to, with this powder in this recipe, you can go all the way up to 30 bushing, depending on what kind of velocities you're looking for. These are right around 1,300 feet per second, so I mean you can definitely notice the recoil, or they're a nice magnum load, but they're not, you know, super high. They're not 1,450 feet per second buckshot loads either. So good for, I mean, they'll do the job just as well as any of the buckshot out there, but they're just, for just target shooting them, they're a little bit easier on the recoil. So I go ahead and show my recipe there, and know what you think. Thanks.